Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wondered if the way kids learn to code with fun visual tools like ScratchJr actually makes their brains work in ways similar to how they process language or other complex rules? Well, this new study dives deep into that very question. You know how we learn to read and write and how our brains process all those complex sentences and grammar rules? Scientists have been studying how our brains handle those things. But what about coding, especially coding for little kids using colorful blocks instead of complicated text? That is what this research wanted to figure out. Basically, they asked if playing with a kid-friendly coding program called Scratch makes your brain do something similar to when you are understanding a sentence or following a set of instructions. They were looking for specific brain signals that scientists use to understand how our minds process information. So, how did they do it? Imagine you are watching a little video like a cartoon cat doing something, then you see a sequence of these pretty puzzle piece code blocks appear on the screen. One by one, some of these code sequences would make sense with the video you just saw. Like if the cat moved up in the video, the code might say move up, but other code sequences wouldn't make sense. Maybe the cat moved up in the video, but the code said move down or make a sound. While people watched these videos and then saw the code blocks, scientists hooked them up to a special cap that measures brain activity. Think of it like an EEG, which uses little sensors on your scalp to pick up the electrical signals from your brain. They were looking at tiny electrical responses that happen very quickly after something happens, called event-related potentials, or ERPs. Specifically, they were watching for two main brain signals. One is called the N400, which usually pops up when something in a sentence or story doesn't make sense. Meaning-wise, for example, if you hear, "I spread the news on my toast," your brain might show an N400 because toast doesn't fit with spread the news. The other signal they looked for is called the P600, traditionally. This happens when something is grammatically wrong, like the dog chased by the cat. But more recently, scientists have found that the P600 can also show up when something is semantically or meaning-wise strange. Even if the grammar is fine, it is like your brain is trying to figure out what is going on or maybe trying to correct an error. And what did they find? Well, they didn't see the N400 signal when the code didn't match the video. That was a bit of a surprise, but they did see a clear P600 signal. This means that when the ScratchJr code blocks didn't make sense with the preceding video, the participants' brains showed this P600 response. It suggests their brains were flagging this as something unusual or unexpected, even though it wasn't a grammatical error in the traditional sense. Interestingly, it didn't matter how much experience the adults had with ScratchJr. Even if they were pretty good at it, they still showed the P600 when the code was unexpectedly mismatched. This is different from some studies with text-based coding where experience can change how the brain reacts. So what does this all mean? It suggests that even though ScratchJr uses pictures and blocks instead of words, our brains still process it in ways that are similar to how we handle language or other structured information. The P600 effect they saw is usually linked to your brain working to understand or reanalyze something that doesn't quite fit. It is like your brain says, hold on a second, that doesn't quite line up with what I expected. And it has to put in a little extra effort to make sense of it. Think of it this way, the video sets up an expectation and then the code blocks either confirm or defy that expectation. When they defy it, the P600 kicks in. It is as if your brain is doing a little internal correction or noticing an anomaly. This is really cool because it tells us that the brain's language processing areas, or at least the mechanisms involved, might be flexible enough to handle these visual programming structures too. Now, even though the results are exciting, it is important to remember this study was done with adults. They are hoping this gives us a baseline understanding, but to truly know how ScratchJr affects young minds, we need studies with children. Another thing to note is that the ScratchJr platform itself is designed to be super easy. So it is hard to create syntactic or grammar errors like you might find in text coding. Because of this, the study focused on semantic or meaning errors. Future research could explore what happens with other programming languages that have stricter rules. Overall, this research is a fantastic step in understanding the cognitive side of early coding education. It suggests that learning with visual tools like ScratchJr isn't just about fun. It is engaging complex brain processes that are also involved in language and rule-based learning. It really supports the idea that coding is another language, as some experts put it. I am really curious to see future studies that look at children directly, and maybe even follow them over time to see how ScratchJr impacts their developing brains. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think learning through play with tools like ScratchJr is truly shaping developing minds in profound ways? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this interesting, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more mind-bending science and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into the world of psychology and neuroscience. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.